Take it. Well, reports out of Washington this morning are suggesting that a number of left-wing groups are uniting to push the president's agenda. That, according to a report from Politico.com. The new organization is called Unity 09, but don't look for a website because we're hearing this group is trying to keep its efforts top secret. Why? Karl Rove is former senior advisor to President Bush and now a Fox News contributor. Karl, good morning.
Good morning.
All right,
how are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. Unity 09 is composed of pretty much as far to the left as you can get, groups like MoveOn.org and others. Why would they keep their efforts to support the president's agenda secret?
Well, maybe because the composition of the group, you mentioned MoveOn.org. Remember, they're the people who smeared General Petraeus by calling him General Betrayus, and this is also the same group that in the aftermath of the attack in the World Trade Center ran a full-page ad in the New York Times cautioning against violent reaction to the Taliban, saying violence only begets violence. So, I mean, they're really out on the fringes of American politics, and they may recognize that. The other reason is that, look, who are their targets? Let's step back for a minute and ask the question, why are they doing this? There are two answers to that. One is they could be going after Republicans in order to sort of create an environment in which if you vote against the president, you suffer political consequences back home. That would seem to run a little bit counter to President Obama's declarations that he wants a new kind of politics without recriminations. The more likely is that these left-wing groups are there primarily focused on making certain that blue dog Democrats and centrist New Democrats, toe the line when it comes to Obama policies up and down the line. So they may want to have a little bit lower visibility because their principal targets, some are Republicans, but their other targets are these more conservative Democrats who are queasy about how much deficit, how much spending, and how much taxes are in the Obama budget.
Well, that certainly sounds like that's their mission, because they say that their goal is to pressure lawmakers to back the president's agenda, whether they believe in it or not. They want them to support it. And you've got, as I mentioned, MoveOn.org, American Civil Liberties Unit, the ACLU, National Council of La Raza, that's a Hispanic rights group, Planned Parenthood, labor unions. I mean, it's like a laundry list of sort of liberal Democratic
left-wing groups, right?
So they're banding together, and one of the first things that they reportedly did was this attack on Rush Limbaugh. Reportedly, this is the group that was in part behind this concerted effort to try to tie the Republican Party to Rush Limbaugh, which, Karl, a lot of people think was a very effective tactic.
Well, let's step back a minute there, too, because what we do know about this is that this idea was concocted by James Carville and Stan Greenberg from polling, where they found Rush Limbaugh was unpopular among younger Democrats and among more liberal people. So what they did is they went to the Obama White House, and David Axelrod authorized the attack. He says so in a New York Times interview with him. Rahm Emanuel assigns a full-time staffer to monitor the assault on Rush Limbaugh, and then you have Robert Gibbs gleefully launching the attack from the podium, telling the media to go after Rush Limbaugh. You know what? That's demeaning to the White House. Why is the White House doing that kind of thing? Rather than having an argument about the merits of the issue of, defend the bailout, defend the earmarks, defend the omnibus pork spending, defend the budget, defend the record deficits, what they do is they set up misdirection by going after Rush Limbaugh. Now, it might be a clever tactic, but the American people, I think, are a little bit smarter than that, and they look at that and say, why is the White House wasting its time doing that? And why is the President of the United States walking out of the Oval Office and jumping down onto a stage with a popular radio commentator? It's demeaning. And
well, especially when he said he wanted to get beyond that kind of politics, that he didn't want to operate a White House that worked that way. But let me ask you this, Karl, because they say that the White House is not directly tied to this group, that they're not working directly with this group. But when you see something like the Limbaugh example, which reportedly this group was behind, and then you have the White House pushing it, not just from the president himself, but from his press secretary and so on. Do you believe that? And what do you think of if President Obama works with a group like this? What does it tell the American people?
Well, these are coordinated. Let's not kid ourselves. They go out of their way. For example, last week they unveiled the 8:45 phone call that's held each morning among left-wing groups, and they went out of their way to say the White House does not participate directly in these phone calls. Well, that begged the question of it. And then they went out of their way to say, but we're coordinating closely with the White House. The head of our organization was the head of Obama's transition, and blah, 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 blah. The same with this group. The White House is not directly involved in our activities. Well, are they indirectly involved? Are they coordinating them? Are they suggesting to you? Because this raises a question of are the rules being bent or violated? Because, for example, it is illegal for the White House to ask somebody on the outside to run advertisements lobbying members of Congress. If those scripts are going through the White House, if somebody is saying, we want you to do an ad, Americans United for Change, that is focused on saying the Republicans are voting no, this could be a legal problem for the White House. But at minimum, the kind of things that they're saying and doing run counter to the spirit of what President Obama led us to believe that he would have once he got into office. And as a result, they are giving the lie to what the president said he wanted to do.
You know, their response, or at least one noted Democrat's response to some of the questions people have raised about this group is, look, times have changed. In the words of Paul Begala, who you know is a political consultant, one of President Clinton's guys, says, quote, when progressive activists are working in concert and the right is forming a circular firing squad, you know it's a new day. Does he have a point?
Well, this is a commentary that's wrong. I mean, the Republicans and conservatives are not forming a circular firing squad, but I do acknowledge that the liberal groups and left-wing groups are doing a better job of coordinating their action and developing the resources to push through this very large budget with very large deficits and very large taxes. So in a way, you have to sort of tip your hand to their coordination and to their effectiveness. On the other hand, it is running exactly counter to the spirit that President Obama led us to believe, and it is clear as well that the White House is encouraging, directing, organizing, prompting, supporting, and facilitating these efforts, and that is not only running counter to the spirit of what President Obama laid out, but it's also potentially putting them at some risk of violating rules.
Karl Rove, always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. You bet.